Hi guys, this is Alfred from BinaryOptionsTutor.com, back again with my the second installment on support and resistance. Today we're going to be talking about artificial. Uh, these are just formulaic uh, support and resistance lines, but sometimes they can be very predictive. And I think they're a wonderful place to start when you're very new to trading and just still learning how to properly draw your support and resistance lines. That's a great way to get in and get involved, I should say, and start getting some lines on some charts for you to trade around. So today we're going to look at the first of two these artificial lines that I like to use, which is Murrey Math lines. T.H. Murray essentially developed Murray Math theory around the random thought process in 1993. He released this in his book. It was probably inspired by uh, his fascination with Gann theory. We've all heard of Fibonacci theory. Gann wrote a book earlier on. I think the book was the yeah, the six clues of the market or something like that. I'm just quoting from memory here. And this book really inspired him to create, uh, I believe, a simpler way to look at some of Gann theory from the perspective of a fractal element place, fractal representation of price action inside of a perfect cube. Now, don't get too wrapped up in all of the math. That's as far as I'm gonna go into that. But let's look at the words perfect cube. If the market is utter chaos, and remember, Dr. Murray was writing on random theory. Um, if the market is utter chaos, and there's also a very popular argument that the true purpose of chaos is to simply find a perfect equilibrium. And so, therefore, it makes a lot of sense that we can use these perfect cubes. And he divided this cube into 8 lines like a musical scale. Coincidentally, he's from Nashville, home of very many popular songwriters. In fact, it's the songwriting capital of our country, really, here in the States. Um, but back on topic, it's kind of fascinating because I'm an artist along with my brother. So, what what we have is a scale here composed of 8 parts. Our Murray Math lines have 10 strikes or 10 lines because we've added a +1/8 and a 0/8, and this would be outside of that scale. And let's just look at the cube theory just a little bit. I'm going to really oversimplify this, but essentially, if you had a stock that traded between 1 and 100, the cube of that, the square of that would be 10 times 10. So if we wanted to look at the next number up, and on Monday that stock traded from 1 to 100, and we know that that square is 10, where's that next number up? 11 times 11, which gives us 121. So we would take that 121, divide it into our 8 portions from top to bottom, and that's how we get our scale, our Murray Math lines. That's very much oversimplifying, especially when you start talking about 5 decimal points like we have here on the Forex market. But that'll essentially give you an idea of what we're talking about with these perfect cubes. And that's inside of this perfect cube, we find these lines that are very predictive, that are these points where we see that harmony, where we see that equilibrium, and the market reacts well to these lines, is both lines of support and of resistance. I want to get that out of the way before I talk a lot about trading around Murrey Math and personally how we use it. Because a lot of times I think guys will come on and they'll talk about indicators and they'll pull up some indicators on the chart and they'll show you or give you some fundamental ways that people view the indicators, but they don't necessarily explain the intricacies of what is this indicator, what are we looking at, and what was the original founder of this theory trying to point out and focus to us. So now we understand the random thought process and the order out of chaos and finding that order numerically with the squares. And we understand that we simply just have that square divided into an 8-part scale represented by lines. Now we're going to talk about some personal ways that we trade around Murrey Math lines. And what we like to do at Binary Options Tutor is view this 4/8, this blue 4/8 line here is our little pendulum between a bullish day and a bearish day. Bullish being price action that starts above that 4/8, bearish, excuse me, being price action that would be below that 4/8. Now, if the center of the universe is this 4/8, then we go out um, a couple of lines here and we look for our lines below and our lines above to be our first lines of support and resistance. If we break those lines, or when we break those lines on the day, then those lines we will simply look for the next line that is our line of support or resistance, depending on what side it is relative to our 4/8 line. So we just keep going out and out and out to find our resistance, and down and down and down to find our support, until we're obviously going to hit where we've gotten outside of the entire scale of the Murrey Math. Now, what I like to do in most cases is I view this white line is our plus 1/8 here is a breakout line, and our line down here is a breakout line. And I'm not trying to predict the future. At that point, when price action is above that line, all we're seeing is that we had hard numbers from the previous day, and we are now moving exponentially outside of that range. And we're just stating what the indicator is actually indicating, which is that we're in an extremely bullish market, and we see this market breaking out and going above that plus 1/8. And throughout the day, we see that our envelopes and the actual price action still being encased above our plus 1/8. I drew a line right here on the day, and we see an attack of that plus 1/8, and obviously since we broke it, that line, as we covered before in the previous video, that line of resistance now becomes our line of support, and we bounced off that line, is it was our line of support. Now there's always going to be arguments of, well, are is it that the lines are predictive, or is it that we had the lines at the top of the day and everybody's sharing charts looking at these same lines, and we're making them predictive. Um, who knows which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And that's really just a conversation for someone other than I. All that I know is that these lines can help a trader that's starting out to get some lines on this chart, and even if you're a more experienced trader, also an opportunity to get some lines, that interesting levels that might also supplement what you're putting on your chart manually. Now we're looking into the next day, and I chose these days on the dollar yen. One, to show where we had all of that positive sentiment, and we seemed to dive down into uh, the 4/8s, and we just bounced right off of it and never looked back. Now on this day, we see we're hitting that 4/8s. We just can't quite get back into that positive sentiment. We see that rejection and that consolidation there, and throughout the day, that sentiment is holding below that 4/8s. There goes a little pop right there, a little aggression, but some consolidation around that 4/8s line, and we go right back into our negative sentiment on the day. Here's where we touch our extreme lows, our 0/8s line, and you'll note that we touched that line, but we just weren't able to break it and just keep running off into a breakout. So it's very important as you're trading around these theories behind these lines to also look at your chart, look at price action, and see what the market is doing, what's actually going on relative to price action in these lines. They're great for building hypotheses, but make sure that you're taking the time to look and make sure that your hypotheses are working out. Now we're going into another day, and here's an instance where we see an attack all the way up to our plus 1/8. There's that consolidating pattern. That ball's getting thrown up into the air, then starting to consolidate into this range here, and we're just not able to break back down below that 4/8. So the market wants to stay positive on the day, and we go back up. There's a very large candle right here. Some great um, uh, dynamic trading, because in one 5 minute period we probably done about 15 16 pips there. Now let's look at the last time we were approaching this line. That's probably about 20 minutes there, and we still didn't do that same we didn't have that same velocity. So this time we break that line, we break it with authority, and we that line is now our resistance, is now our support, is price continues to ascend outside of that Murrey Math plus 1/8 line. Where would I go? Is I go into our next day? Where would I go when we've already surpassed the plus 1/8? And that's really where I start to bring in the next topic that we're going to cover in the next video, which is going to be our pivot points, because the pivots are often outside of those the formula for the Murrey Math, and we can use those as a template for targets when we've actually gotten outside of the breakout line. Now, one last thing I want to touch on before I get off the bandwagon of Murrey Math lines, I want to mention that on our site at binaryoptionstutor.com, we also supply the numbers every day. These are Murrey Math lines based on the day that we use for our intraday trading, and these are Murrey Math lines for various popular stocks and other assets. We provide these inside of our MSP tool for free. I'm going to do another video later on and talk more about the MSP tool. But a lot of people, after distributing our FRB template for free, a lot of people would ask me, well, okay, but I don't hear as much talk about Murrey Math lines. Where do we, how do we get them for stocks? And that's why my brother developed this template right here, so that you can get a bird's eye view of several popular stocks and various assets, in where they are relative to the Murrey Math lines. That's all I really had for today. We were just talking about artificial lines being used for support and resistance. We'll be back next time to talk about the more popular standard pivot point lines. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Have a wonderful time trading. Wishing all of you a lot of success, a lot of profits. And if you get a chance, come by and drop by the site, pick up some of the tools that I'm sharing here in these videos, and we share on our site. Drop into the forum. We love to talk about not only binary options, but just trading in general. Once again, this is Alfred for BinaryOptionsTutor.com. I'll see you guys on the next video.